Hey, Complete Combatants. Brian Hill with the Complete Combatant, and talking about the third decisional speed of shooting. Different type of way to address sights and trigger. They should always be put together. They're synergistic by nature. They can't be divorced from each other. What you see in your dot is going to tell you how to press the trigger relative to the size of the target. So we've talked about a very deliberate trigger press that's used for high-level marksmanship. Then we talked about the reactive, or the way I like to phrase it, the corrective trigger press, making sure that it is inside of the given target and that we correct whatever's happening inside of it. And that's where most of us end up shooting. Now we're going to talk about a high-level shooting sort of style, and this is the predictive trigger press. Now this is only possible for experts, maybe intermediates, because experts can predict the future with a great deal of success. We've seen the pattern over and over again. So simply to get to this point, you have to practice, which precludes a lot of people ever learning this, and therefore they don't think it exists in the manner that they want it to. So we're going to practice trying to predict where the dot or your front sight is going to go each time. And as it enters the target, we're going to prep the trigger and press. What happens with most people when they're aiming is it's doing this, and we're trying to do it all over the place. All right. And then when we hit the middle, we shoot. We try to steady it. What a predictive one will do is the sights will rise. As they fall, I prep the trigger right here, and then I press here as it enters. So if you accept that your sights are a movie and not a picture and that they're never still, it becomes much easier to do this sort of predictive. If I was coming in from the side, I'd begin to prep the trigger right here, and then I would press it right about here, and it would hit right here. What most people do is they get to here, then they press the trigger, and they tend to go out the other side of the target. So we're predicting the path of the dot or the path of the front sight. I'm not going to say front sight anymore. You guys get the idea. You can do this with either sighting system. We're shooting dots now. Dots are definitely the present. It's so much easier to do this with a dot than it is iron sights. So we're going to predict where the dot will be, whether it be rising and I'm going to shoot to the same spot, whether it's going to be transitioning right or left. Now when it goes right and left, it doesn't move in a straight line. It's going to lift, and we're going to arc in, lift and arc in, so that we get a good idea how this is shooting. So you've got to predict it. Now the only way you can predict it is that your fundamentals are good. You have to have a great draw. You have to have a good grip. You have to be able to mitigate recoil so that the dot tracks straight up and down and comes back to the same spot, or that when you transfer to another target, it moves in a path and stays in the optics so you can see it. The other thing is you need to open up your vision. If you get dot focused or specifically target focused and you can't see everything, it's very hard to do this, because we want to open up the vision, and that way we're recognizing the movement, the predictive nature of the dot. All right, let's move back a little bit and we'll shoot this real quick. All right, guys, and forgive me, they're building something across the street, so dump trucks and tractors and all sorts of noises going on. And I'm setting up my duty gear, my carry gear for rifle classes and LEO classes to make sure it works. So I'll be working out of this today instead of my usual appendix. All right, so what I'm going to do is predict where the dot goes, and I'm simply waiting for the dot to come back down and shoot. All right, I'm going to shoot this on the head box because I'm going to use the body for something different in just a minute. So let's watch this. I don't know if you guys can see the target, but I let it rise more than I normally would so that we could see it, and I'm catching it on the way down, and it yields extraordinarily good accuracy because I'm actually ahead of the process. If I get ahead of the process, I know what's coming, and I can be prepared to execute the action. When I'm in corrective or reactive mode, I'm behind the process and I'm fixing what's already happened. Both are equally important. We need both, because you will make mistakes and you'll have to correct. The correction is always worth it. But if we can start shooting in this predictive manner where we open up our vision, we'll do a lot better. Now I'm going to transfer from the left to the right on 3 targets. As the red dot enters the outside edge of the circle or the cue, I'm going to prep the trigger and press it as it goes through the middle, and I'm just going to move it on. And you'll see the sight kind of do this as we move across. So all good hits. And it's hard to accept this because I'm not trying hard, I'm not driving the gun, simply bumping it over like a mouse on the computer. I just move it across the screen gently and let it do its work. I know from drilling that this is about a 0.3 for me to move like that. Maybe a 0.25 if I really rush, try and hurry, but that's not the nature of this drill. Now I'm gonna go the opposite way. So I'll start from the right and go to the left. Be the same thing. When it lifts, I predicted a good shot by calling it. And that's the nature of prediction, is that I've seen everything I need to. I call the shot as it exits, and I just move it, start prepping the trigger as it comes into the target, call it, shoot, call it, shoot. So instead of calling the shot afterwards, you're calling it in advance, which is a better way to shoot. It only costs you 0.2 to call it in advance sometimes, and it's a better way. So if you imagine from here on out, everything is limited or Virginia count, you can only shoot so many rounds, call it before you shoot it. Make sure it's a good shot. And if I'm getting ahead of that and I'm tracing that motion of the dot, then I know when to do this, and that gives me a predictive analysis on it. All right, let's watch the other way. Okay, once again, all good hits. They worked really well. Everything's moving across, getting good center hits. Now, those of you that are going to go accuracy and precision mode, you're going to try to get center of the center. But we're shooting somebody, either there's 3 of them or they're running. Think of this as running and you're trying to track them. You simply won't be able to hold on a target that is moving, or if you're moving or something's in the way and it's moving. So we have to learn how to do this. This predictive nature is very important. Hunters use it all the time with game. We'd like to have something stand still, but sometimes it doesn't, and you have to predict what's going to happen in the future. I'm going to do one more for you where I predict as it moves up and down. So this will be one to the body, one to the head. And what I'm going to do is, the gun is rising anyway, so I will prep the trigger as it enters the bottom of the circle. I'll press, and then I'll fire the shot to the middle of the head box. I tell you, the hardest thing to sell people on is it's less work. There's no effort in it. You let the gun rise, it goes right there. Everything goes in a circle. People that are still in deliberate mode of shooting will say it wasn't accurate enough, but whatever the target is, as long as it's inside that target, it's acceptable. So if you think you need to shoot smaller targets, there's still a predictive nature in this. In fact, it may be more important than a reactive nature, because often by the time we react, the sights have moved on to another place, and then we have to correct again. So now you got 3 speeds, guys. You got your very deliberate style of pressing the trigger. I'm trying to make an extraordinarily accurate shot. That would be on an ocular box, a 2-inch circle, a 1-inch square, something where it's got to be perfect. I'm going to really work on my postural stability and press that trigger. Then I've got the reactive mode where I've got a certain size target, whether it's body, head, ocular box, and I'm going to let that dot float in there, and when it crosses into the target and I can settle a little bit, I will fix it. It'll rise, fall, rise, and then shimmy and shake, and then I'll shoot it. That's reactive. And then predictive is that my fundamentals and my practice have led to a repetitive index, and I can do it every time that I draw the gun. So as I bring the dot out, I see it fall into the target, I prep the trigger and I shoot. Now that's chained to the decision of shooting. I've decided to shoot if I'm doing the draw. If I'm predictive, I'm shooting already. As it lifts, when it comes back down, I prep the trigger and I shoot again. So now you got 3 different speeds to work with, guys. To be honest, most people do not have 3 speeds. Some people are fortunate to have the first 2, and some people only have 1, whether it's the corrective speed or it's the deliberate speed. And hence a lot of the reasons we argue about trigger speeds. You need to build all 3, guys. Especially when movement becomes involved or multiple opponents, the deliberate will fail you. We need to be in a predictive nature. The corrective is good if you call shots, but sometimes it's too slow for what we're doing, and sometimes it's too fast for what we're doing. So the size of the target, what you're seeing in your sight movie, and how you prep and press that trigger is what's going to matter in it. All right, I'm Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant. Check us out. Our website is thecompletecombatant.com. If you'd like to host me, I have a low minimum. Love to come out and train with you and teach you guys about this. You know, techniques are important, but what we're really talking about is how you work and what is the matrix for your performance level. If you've been frustrated with a lot of technical instruction and simply hasn't gotten you where you want to go, let's work on your decisional skills. Let's work on the sensation of the psychology of how you expect results to come out, and we'll be able to perform that. Guys, as always, the most important thing in all of this is measure, refine, and perform. I'm Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant, and I'll see you next time.